Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Anti-Social Planet, and today we are checking out the Dreamcatcher Vision choreography. So we're going to be checking out the fixed version of the choreography just because I have seen some of the choreography with the camera moving around in the music video, which is here on the channel if you want to go check that out, and then in the comeback showcase that they did on stage, which is Patreon only if you want to know where that is. Basically to say that I've seen some of the choreo up to this point and I really want to just get a hold back stationary view of the choreography. I absolutely love dance videos. Like, the reason that I got into Korean music the way that I have is because of the dancing, and most of the time the way that I get into groups is through watching their dance videos. That's just like my gateway into different groups, and this is a little bit different with Dreamcatcher because I'm trying to be slightly less chaotic with the way that I go through their different stuff. So I am so excited to check out my first video of them doing choreography for something, and I wanted to do this not only because Vision is one of their new songs that I've heard, but also because their choreographer, who I think is named Soohyun, I think you guys told me, has a video of her talking about the choreo. So it's a new thing, it looks like. She doesn't have a lot of videos out yet of her going through the choreo that I know of. Please let me know in the comments if you know about other material where she's talked about stuff, just so I can get like an idea of all of the information. You know, I can't know everything, so if there's something that I'm missing, let me know. But the other songs that she has broken down the choreo for, I haven't heard yet, so I thought we would do Vision so that we can see her perspective of it too, because I absolutely love listening to dancers, especially people who have choreographed like the specific dance, talking about the process of it, because it's something that I'm so far removed from. I'm not a dancer, so if you're expecting some kind of insight into the choreo, I'm gonna fail you here, okay? Insight into like vocals and music production stuff, I've got you. Dance, I don't know anything about, except being someone who appreciates it. So we're mostly just here to appreciate the choreo and stuff like that, and then listen to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, and maybe comment a little bit on the musicality of how those dance moves correspond with the actual production and stuff like that. I really don't know how good I'm gonna be at this, but if nothing else, you will see me lose my mind a little bit about choreo because that's just who I am. It's one of my natural states. I think it's because I can't do it, so I'm just enamored by people who can. But that all being said, let's get into seeing the actual dance video because I am so excited. Let's see this full choreo. I'm sure I'm going to end up pausing and rewinding and trying to see everyone because that's just usually how my mind goes. Oh, I love the formations at the beginning. Oh my god, okay, the stomp though. Like, not only is it just super satisfying to hear people, like their feet match up and sync when people are dancing, but like the stomp has so much power to it that it just fits the vibe of the song so well. Oh, they're so flowy with their movements too. Ooh, I love the spin too with the arms, like tracking the movement. Like a lot of arm movement and then following that motion with the arms. Whoa, I'm like trying to follow how they like transition from standing to sitting like that. I don't think I ever noticed that in any of their other performance, like their other performance. Wow, that was smooth. I love a good hand detail. Oh, I love that move too, where they like throw their hands down on the beat and their knees come up. There's just something so powerful about that exaggerated movement. That part. I love that too. Okay, I think that's probably my favorite move. The more that I thought about it after seeing the showcase is, I think, my favorite move from this whole choreo I have seen so far, there may be a gem in here somewhere, is the vision one where they have like the vision, like that move. I don't know why. I think it's because I love hand details so much, but there's just something so powerful in having that very concentrated movement for such an important part of the song. It's just like a very like small area for the movement to happen, and it's very controlled, and it has this feeling of like tension behind it, and yet it's not this huge statement movement, and that's what like oddly makes it a statement, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's my favorite move so far. They're so smooth. Like there's something, like even though they have power in certain movements, there's something very like feminine about the smoothness of their movements, which I think is a really nice thing to have with this music, because even though like it's rock, it's inspired by rock, which is, at least from my knowledge of it, predominantly male oriented. I don't know what it is in South Korea, the history of rock music, but at least here in the West, it's predominantly male dominated. So it tends to have an aggressive, more like traditionally male things to it, if you want to like fit into what is traditionally male and female or whatever, but it fits into more traditionally masculine traits. And then to have that sound, but then bring in these traditionally feminine, like little details, even in like the way that they record stuff with the vocals and stuff like that. But obviously we're focusing on dance, so the way that they're able to bring those smoother movements into it and have things like certain body movements that are more on the feminine side from dance as opposed to more like masculine styles, even though they have some of those masculine styles mixed in, it just like makes this feel more rounded. And I think it really lets them like be women in this performing space, as opposed to trying to conform to something more masculine to fit into the sound, which I really like. I like that they get to be women, you know? And not like girly, like there's nothing childish about their movements either. Come on, Dami! I love that too, like huge movement with the arms, focusing the direction of that movement too, and like it's powerful and it's quick. I think it fits really well with the like rap that's a little bit more aggressive in sound. And the punch with the Jackie Chan. Ooh, I love that too with the like karma, where it also has like the two sides, and a lot of karma is balance, right? So having the two sides have similar things happening has that feeling of balance in the imagery. See, and then we slow down, very smooth, more feminine movements. Oh, I love that movement too between the two groups. There's some really interesting formations in this. Oh, I love that move so much. Also, like, not important to the dancing, but can we talk about Xian's outfit? Can we talk about it? The hat, the baggy clothes, the very like street style fashion. I'm here for it. I love this too. The very like march, like military kind of formation. Ooh, I never noticed that before, the almost like drum movement that they have. Did I notice that before? I don't think I did. That part where they have the arm movements that are almost like they're hitting a drum. I love that too, the way that they slow down the movement before the like explosion of movement for that note. Slow down, focus towards her, and then all of this movement. Ooh, wonderful reveal where they all moved even though it wasn't centered. Great way to redirect attention to the next person. Beautifully put together. Ooh, and they're in like a V formation too, which is like good for blocking, but also vision. Oh, and I love how they end at rest. Like, you know, after all of this like marching and military inspired formations and stuff like that, they end at rest, which is very military inspired. I feel tired watching them. One thing though, who was your favorite outfit in this? I always get distracted by the fashion in dance practices. Real talk. I think Sheehan. I think she's my favorite. Not only for the style, but I think if I was going to wear one of them, that would be the one that I ended up wearing. Let me know what your choice would be. Not important to the reaction. I'm just curious. Okay, now let's see what the choreographer has to say. I've given some of my thoughts from my very uneducated perspective. Let's see who someone who actually knows what they're talking about has to say. I hope to be enlightened. I hope that there's something I missed, like some detail, and I'm just like, oh, that's a really cool detail. That's what I'm hoping for.
드디어 드림캐쳐가 컴백을 했습니다.
예!
Yes,
비전!
come back.
이번 비전은 아포칼립스 두 번째
True,
이야기로
I still need to go back and do
파괴범들과
missile.
싸웠던 드림캐쳐들이 전투로 인해 파괴된 지구를 보면서 이렇게 두고 보면 안 되겠다. 우리 다 함께 싸우자. 이런 내용입니다. 일단 세계관을 이해를 하신다면은 저래서 저런 의상을 입었구나. 저래서 저런 안무를 했구나. 라는 걸 알 수 있어서 다 이제
True, I'm coming into this without a bunch of the connections.
비전 리뷰를 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다.
Yes, let's do it. Ooh, a little bit of reaction inception. We were just there.
이 세계관은 이제 팔로워스라고 해서 황정 지킴이들이 이제 드림캐쳐고 이제 여자 댄서분들이 같은 대항군인 거예요. 뭔가 펼쳐진 그림, 그러니까 제식 같은 느낌을.
See, that's what I said before about like the formal feeling, like images that they were having with the different formations, but also her saying like they're like opposing. Yeah, they're the same opposing force. So it's again what I was talking about, how there's like the two sides of it, while also saying like there's a kind of like balance to that, right? Which is what I was saying before, not only like in terms of composition of like blocking and stuff like that, which is kind of the only thing I can talk about as someone who did theater on like an actual stage. I know what blocking is, I've done that before. So it looks nice to have like a balanced formation on the stage, but I think it also fits with that feeling of needing to restore balance. So I totally see that.
댄서분들이 같은 대항군인 거예요. 뭔가 펼쳐진 그림, 그러니까 제식 같은 느낌을 내고 싶었어요. 군대 다녀오신 남자분들 굉장히 흥미로우실 텐데 다른 구성에서 쓰지 않는 같은 줄을 썼고요. 그리고 인원이 조금 많아 보이기 위해서 굉장히 펼친.
That's true. It does look, the spreading out does make it look like there's more to the image than there actually is.
인트로 자체가 비행하다가 쿵 뭔가 착지하는
Ooh, I wouldn't
그림이
have thought
계속
of that.
연상이 돼가지고
The feeling of
공군의
flying.
느낌을 내고 싶었습니다.
Ooh, I didn't get Air Force, but that's a cool like place to pull imagery from. Like you can see her like mimicking some of the dances. We love a serious dancer face when they're like that concentrated.
너무 시각하기 힘든 말이
맞아요.
그 정도 그래서 되게 특이하더라고요. 그래서 어떤 연출을 한 건지.
천재예요 작곡가분들이. 이런
I agree.
가사를 쓴다고 하는 놀라움을 항상 주더라고요. 시각화했던
I agree
거는
with that
여기
impression.
안무 중에서 꿈의 미래라는 가사가 있는데 과거에서부터 미래를 흐를 때 보통 사람들이 이미지를 생각했을 때 좌에서 우로 가잖아요. 이
True.
시간차를 좌에서 우로 가는 걸 의도했어요. 별거 아니지만.
I love that feeling of like the direction of the movement mimicking how we kind of assume time, and a lot of that has to do with like how do we read things. So that's not just language, but that's also like how do you read like charts, how do you read pictures, what is the natural way for our eye to go over a piece of paper or a picture, whatever it is, and you usually want to follow that. And that's something that you have with theater too. Again, pulling from the only thing I know is that if you're going to say that you're traveling from one point to another, time is passing. Let's say you go from like stage right. So mini lesson on stage directions. If you're standing on stage, your right is stage right, your left is stage left. Always, consistently, regardless of where you're standing, that's how you orient it. So if you're in the audience, it's still, stage right is still stage right and stage left is still stage left, as if you were standing on stage, even though it would be switched if you're from the audience. I'm probably not explaining that super well. Look up a graph if you want to know more about stage direction. But the point is that if you say exit stage left, so you're moving from stage right to stage left, and you exit the stage, then when you come onto the next scene, because you're trying to say that time is passing and you're traveling, you have to enter from stage right and continue moving left. And that's how you continue that journey, even though it'd be easier for you to just turn around and walk back on stage from the opposite direction. You need to continue to move in the same direction, because if you switch the direction, it makes it feel like you're going backwards, both like spatially, but also time-wise. So her talking about how you have this use of specific direction to mimic time and kind of playing with how you use that is actually something that you learn a lot in like theater and stuff, which is cool that there's any kind of crossover with this. I wouldn't have thought of that certain movement directionality.
이번 안무를 하면서 되게 저에 대한 고찰이 조금 있었어요. 약간 저랑 기현이가 항상 드림캐쳐 거를 같이 작업을 하는데 이 20곡 넘게 작업을 하면서 우린 절대 자가복제를 하지 말자. 갇힌 거예요, 거기서. 아, 이것도 했던 그림이고, 아, 저것도 했던 그림인데.
I guess that's true if you're
했던 리에를 섭외를 한 거죠.
working on this with the same group. You have to try and not do the same things.
리에가 가져온 안무예요. 착 이게 시계 느낌을 내지 않았을까요?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's kind of a clock movement. I didn't say it in the other one, but it does have a clock feeling to the way that it's kind of like ticking and stuff. Again, playing with that idea of time passing, which I think really fits well with the story of the song, which is that, we're running out of time. We've waited for long enough and now we have to actually act on what's happening. So that being very aware that time is passing fits with the urgency that the song has. Still love that hand detail.
좀 가사를 직관적으로 표현한 안무가 많습니다. 뭐 예를 들면 살룻은 살룻이고 살룻은 정말 살룻밖에 못 하겠더라고요. 다른 거 많이 삭혔거든요. 뭐 이거 할까? 뭐 저거 할까 하다가 그냥 논란 없는 살룻으로. 이제 비전이란 단어에
That's true. I mean, I feel like she was talking before about how you don't want to repeat yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to overcomplicate it. I feel like that's a big thing too, that you're constantly, when you're putting together a performance, you want to make sure that you're not falling into cliches, you're not falling into patterns because it's what's comfortable. Like, you don't want to slip into something that you've done before, but at the same time, if you make it too complicated, it muddles the story. You want the story to be very clear to the audience, and when you're performing for a stage performance, it has to be super clear and exaggerated because you have to make sure everyone can see it. If you're going to be performing for a huge crowd, we always say performing for the back row. That's what you say in theater. So you need to perform for the people who are the farthest away from you, that they can still follow what's going on. So I feel her, that moment of doubt where you're like, is doing a normal salute like too on the nose for that lyric? But at the same time, you want to keep it's simple and easy to follow at certain points so that people have like those anchors within the story. If they can follow those super easy anchors throughout the story, then they can at least follow the basic narrative. And then the more that they come back to it, they can fill in those gaps with the details that are in between those anchors.
포인트 동작이 두 가지가 있는데 정말 직관적으로 그냥 비전이 있고요. 비전이 있거든요. 비전이라는
I love that, the like picture frame that they make.
이런 내용도 있지만 뭔가를 투영하는 느낌이, 예를 들면은 텔레비전도 있고 그리고 시각적이고
Yeah, it feels like showing them something, almost like taking a picture.
만들어봤어요. 저도
Like
이건 한
giving
번에
you
만들었거든요.
a picture.
애들 이건 어때? 했더니 너무 다 좋다 그래서 했습니다.
That's my favorite move. So
세계관이 없는 곡들은 제가 만들어야 되잖아요. 근데 이렇게 세계관이 정해져 있는 거는 제가 나름대로 해석해서 내 색깔로 만들면 되겠다. 오히려
True.
이제 그게 더 편해진 것 같아요. 너무나 적응돼 버린 그런 느낌?
본인이 가수를 준비했었고 프로듀스에서 좋은 성적을 거뒀었잖아. 퍼포머를 해본 경험이 있으니까 아닌 사람과의 어떤 차이가 있다고?
뭔가 보컬 전공을 하면서 다른 안무가들 뭔가 그렇지 않았던 안무가들과 다른 점은 가사나 탑라인을 들었을 때 노래하는 것처럼 해야겠다. 노래하는 사람이 돼서 해야겠다. 라는 생각부터가 조금 다른 것 같아요. 그러니까 음악을 듣고 음악에 맞는 무브를 짜야겠다가 아니고 내가 여기 탑라인을 부르는 사람이면 어떻게 움직이고 싶을까를 항상 생각해서 짜는 편이에요. 그게 다른 것 같아요.
yeah, see, I think it's a really unique perspective to be able to come from. I talk about how I'm not a choreographer. I have some vocal background, but that's not where my brain goes with thinking about how movement works. But if you're a vocalist and you're coming up with the choreography, I think that it kind of comes in two parts that you excel in with that movement. Part of it being, what's the most comfortable way to be able to sing this while moving? Because you can train all you want to have a bunch of breath support and be able to move around while you're singing. I know I've done it. I feel like this is something that brings a unique perspective on this in that I have a vocal background, but I also had training to be a vocalist for musical theater, which means I had to train to sing and dance at the same time. So while I say I'm not a dancer, I guess I did do some dance in that I was taught enough dance to be able to pass in a musical theater production at like a local theater, so I don't think that that's super impressive, but you do have to train for a bunch of time to be able to move and sing. And it was actually that as soon as we started learning the songs, we were already moving. We had to walk around the room that we were practicing in because we didn't want to learn any of the song early on without having movement involved with that. Because if you learn like sitting down with correct posture, you have all of the right placement of your body for optimal singing conditions, it means that you're training your muscle memory to fit those optimal conditions. And then once you start to move even a little bit, if something's out of place and you've trained too much being in that stationary place, it's going to throw you off. So you have to immediately learn everything from like the day one you're walking around. And we had it where we were like speed walking by the end of it because you had to be a little bit out of breath while also being able to sing, so that by the time we were doing the choreo and singing, we had that support there. And it's something that I do now, actually. Whenever I'm practicing vocals, I walk around, I pace while I'm doing it because it's such a thing that's ingrained into my muscle memory now that I feel like I have to do it. So I feel like her coming from a vocalist background, she understands that certain movements are harder to do while singing, like to keep the singing clear and concise while doing certain movements. And I feel like that is why you want to have big movements at certain parts where they're either not singing or the singing is easier to do, whereas you want to have slower, more fluid movements when you're hitting specific notes, doing things that are a little bit more taxing from a vocal advantage. So I think that she has that interesting perspective of knowing that while going through the initial choreo and not having to switch that once they start to actually try and practice and perform it, which I'm guessing might happen. I don't actually know. I don't have an in to the industry to actually know if that's a thing that regularly happens in the process. I'm sure that things change anyway, just because you have to work with the specific dancers in mind. Like, it's one thing to think about it. She has worked with them a few times, so I guess she has a little bit of a better idea, but you need to fit it to the dancer, to the vocalist. And I think the other part that she comes from having a vocal background is the narrative aspect, being able to tell the story through the dance, because she's a little bit more focused on the vocal lines as opposed to the story that the production is telling. I don't think either is necessarily wrong. I think it's just a different perspective of how to interpret the story. I love how she like copies the movement.
일단 다미 파트, 랩 파트에서는 유력한 주동자를 찾는다는 내용이 있어요. 링 위에 있는 느낌이 좀 나더라고요. 링 혹은 철장 안에서 있다가
Ooh,
깨고 나와서
that's an interesting
주동자를
image.
찾는
I wouldn't have gotten
그런
that, but yeah, she does kind of
그림을 하고
break
싶어서
through
다들 이렇게
the group.
손으로 막고 있고 가수분들이 뚫고 나오는
Yeah.
그림입니다. 그리고
Oh, I didn't catch
제키찬이라는
that.
가사가 나오는데
That's
보통
cool.
제키찬이라는 거 잘 안 쓰잖아요 가사에. 보통 브루스리를 많이 쓰잖아요. 그냥 발차기를
True.
하다가 제가
I guess
태권도에서
Bruce Lee would be
어렸을
the
때
one that they
발차기가 정확히 안
used.
되는 거예요. 그래서 아 이건 안 되겠다. 그래서 주먹질 너무 뻔하니까 뒤로 주먹질 합니다. 제키찬. 그리고 피하고 그리고 마지막에 펀치 합니다. 이제 제가 제작하기 이전에는 멤버들끼리만 하는 그림이었어요. 근데 이제 스크린부터는 극적인 연출을 하고 싶었고 그리고
We still need to
인위적으로
do Scream.
멤버들만의 이야기가 아닌 느낌이기 때문에 굉장히 다양한 인원을 쓰고 싶었어요. 처음에 제가 안무팀을 8명을 쓰겠다. 남자 4명, 여자 4명 쓰겠다 했는데 회사에서 왜 그렇게
Ooh, a
많이
mixture.
필요하냐
Okay.
그러시는 거예요. 다인원을 쓰고 싶은 게 아니라 제가 원하는 그림이 이거다. 그냥 뭐 밀어붙였어요. 멤버들도 설득하고 그런 스토리가 있습니다. 뭔가 이제 케어를 해야 되는 사람들이 늘어나는 거잖아요. 그래서 굉장히 부담스러웠고 처음에는
True, more
굉장히
people,
많이
more,
예민해졌었죠. 근데
like,
지금은
movement you have to
너무
have.
좋습니다. 다들 알아서 해주고 프로들이라 지금 너무 편해요.
It's harder to block too. Like the more people that you have, the more you have to make sure that the picture looks right with everybody moving around. There's more parts moving around to kind of like simplify it down. So it can get complicated, but it does create a more powerful image. She said dramatic, which I think really fits, especially with something that is about like gathering force together, like coming together to accomplish something as a whole group. Clock movement again. Ooh, I didn't notice before when they had the separation that the people on the left of the screen, I'm thinking about stage directions now, were like at rest, similar positions, like this group. Same thing where they're at rest waiting for their time to like start back into the choreography.
이 유연이 파트에 깊게 내려치는 딴다라는 가사가 있는데 보카라는 곡에 똑같이 유연이 파트가 나오거든요. 이렇게 똑같이 깊게 내려치는 딴다.
Ooh,
그
something to
곡에서
look forward to then.
나왔던 구성과 안무를
The
그대로
like
갖다가
parallels between the
썼어요.
choreo and the
그래서
lyrics.
팬분들은 다 아시니까 굉장히 이 오마주를 좋아하시죠.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that because I haven't seen all of their stuff yet.
펼쳐지고 계속 커져요. 그걸 좀 봐주셨으면 좋겠어요.
Ooh, I like that where like the picture keeps spreading, it keeps getting bigger. I pointed that out too.
맞아요.
지금 같은 구성을 사용하는 게 어떤
제가 굉장히 많은 곡들을 드림캐쳐와 작업을 하면서 자가복제를 되게 지향하다 보니까 새로운 그림을 계속 하게 되더라고요. 비대칭으로 가야겠다. 근데 보는 사람이 봤을 때는 비대칭으로 안 보이거든요. 그 이유는 사람들은 원래 본질적으로 비대칭을 편하게 생각한대요. 어디서 본 건데. 아무튼 그런 거를 유념해서 보시면 오 여기가 비대칭이었어? 이렇게 보시게 될 거예요.
영감 책이라든지 생활
아, 네. 저는 영화랑 뮤지컬 진짜 미친 듯이 보거든요.
Hey, musicals like me.
시간이 나면은 뮤지컬 보러 가거나 무조건 넷플릭스 틀거나 그래요. 근데 그거를 틀어놓고 생활을 하는 게 아니라 진짜 집중해서 봐요. 무대 연출을 어떻게 했을까? 여기서 왜 저 구성을 썼을까? 왜 이 조명을 쓸까? 이 전체적인 주제가
I do the same thing
중간-
where like I get distracted by how something, like I said, blocking, lighting, how they're deciding to like balance things on stage. It depends on if it's a stage or if it's like just filmed. If it's like for film as opposed to like a stage performance that is then filmed. I think the same thing. Like I have so many times when I'm watching like actual musicals of like plays that have been filmed or whatever, and I get distracted by like certain things that are going on with like how they're setting up scenes and the acting and stuff like that. Like I can't turn off that part of my brain because I used to watch back my own stuff and other people's stuff and correct for things. So I feel like I've spent so much time with that part of my brain that I can't turn it off. So I totally get that passing on into like even like your leisure time. And I'm the same thing. I love to pull from media. Like I love to focus on it instead of just having, she said, I don't just have it on in my life. I don't just live with it on. I like to focus. And I have the same thing, which is part of the reason I have a reaction channel where I overanalyze media is because that's what I like to do. I don't like to passively have something on. I like to fully immerse myself in whatever it is that I'm watching or listening to and pull everything that I can get from it. Sometimes I turn my brain off, but a lot of the time I can't do it.
이런 내용이 나올까? 이런 걸 되게 눈에 불을 켜고 보려고 하는 편이에요. 거기서 이제 영감을 얻으려고 하는 거죠.
The asymmetry. I love the like movement versus like pause that the asymmetry has.
사람을 사서 배열을 하는 게 일반적인 상황이잖아. 너 같은 경우에는 어떻게 작업을 하는지?
저는 사람을 세워놓지 않아도 머릿속에서 다
Wow.
계산이 돼서
I would not have that in my
이
brain.
사람이 이 위치에서 몇 발 가면은 여기까지 갈 수 있겠다도 다 계산이 돼요.
Ooh, I guess you'd have to think of that too. It's like not only moving people so that the formation looks nice, so you have like the right picture, but you also have to think about like how much time does it take someone to move from that picture to that picture. I'm pulling from my experience with Tableau, which is like literally moving from like pausing, then movement, and then pausing. But it's, you know, you really have to calculate how much time that's going to take. And the only other time I can kind of pull from for that, other than like choreo for musicals, which isn't quite the same thing, except like I guess when I had to move sets, but that wasn't while I had to do choreo and think about time for that. But similar thing with when you have music cues. I know that I just continued to revel in when I used to perform things. I also used to do mime, and a huge part of like mime, because you can't talk, is having sound that helps tell the story, whether that's like effects, if it's music, whatever it is, you're having sound cues that help tell the story. But it also means that like you have to sync your movements up to those, which means you have X amount of time between one sound and the next one where you have to finish your action so that the sound effect matches the action. And you couldn't just have someone like ready with their like finger on the button to like push the sound effect, because there would be a delay between like when they pushed it and then when the action happened. So you had to just have a whole track that was your whole performance and then sync everything up. So yeah, I wouldn't even think about how you have to think how many steps is that, how long does that take, how far are they moving, and then again once you have an actual dancer, their stride is going to be slightly different depending on how tall they are or how they choose to move through that action. So you have to like switch things and recalculate for those kind of details.
모르겠어요. 그리고 구성을 짤 때도
I don't get it either how she could see that in her head.
만약에 안무를 짤 때 처음부터 끝까지 차례대로 나오지 않잖아요. 그래서 여기서 떠오른 구성, 여기서 떠오르는 구성을 생각해 놓고 수도쿠로 맞춰요.
Like Sudoku.
보시면은 그냥 동그라미로 오목 같은 느낌.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wait, I want to see them. Wow, I'm having like flashbacks to when I did stage performance. The same thing. I feel like I want to screenshot it. I wish it was like higher quality so I could like fully zoom in and like see all of the little notes and stuff. Wow.
같은 느낌으로 이렇게 그리는데
Oh, I love
위에서
that.
본 그림인 거거든요. 그게 저는
Yeah, it's from
3D로
like a
이제
top down.
보여요. 정면 그림도 보이는 거예요. 제 머릿속에 다 있고 동생들이랑 같이 정리를 한 다음에 바로 아티스트한테 티칭으로 들어가는 시스템입니다.
I love all of this like behind the scenes kind of insight stuff. I love that kind of ripple from the back to follow her movement too.
일단 저는 드림캐쳐의 브릿지는 메인이에요. 다른 곡들처럼 약간 쉬어가는 느낌이 아니고 메인 주제를 항상 넣어요. 빌드업하는 느낌으로 가고 이 걸어가는 거는 기현이가 짰는데 이거 말고 그 뒤에 북치는 느낌의 안무가 나오거든요.
Yeah, I
그것도 제
pointed out
거예요.
the drumming.
기현이 브릿지, 제 브릿지를 또 합친 거거든요. 이거를 그 현장에서 연습 현장에서 바로 투표해가지고 앞에 건 기현이 거, 뒤에 건 제 거 해가지고 그 자리에서 또 수도쿠 해가지고 바로 정리한.
I love that we made it like Sudoku. Everything in its place though, right?
체육관에서 이제 연설을 한다는 내용이 있거든요. 이 브릿지에서 대항군을 모아서 연설하는 걸 봐주시면 좋을 것 같아요. 다 담겨 있어요. 오케이.
Oh, she's adorable. Side note.
멤버가 이 파트면은 이 멤버가 어떻게 표현하고 싶을까를 조금 생각하긴 하는 것 같아요. 멤버들의 색깔이
I guess that's true too. If you know the members, you can kind of match the movements with what they would
그 멤버한테
would
영감을
do.
좀 얻어서 짜긴 해요. 어떻게 움직일 때 이쁠까. 시연이는
Well,
제가
movements will make them
생각하는
pretty. I agree.
기운이거든요. 기운 위주로 짜고요. 시연이는. 유연이는 파워풀하지만 그 안에서 원망 느낌. 너 왜 그랬어? 이런 느낌이 있고. 그리고 가연이는 원더걸스 소희님 어머나처럼
Wonder Girl
그런
shout out.
귀엽지만 뭔가 포인트 되는 느낌을 항상 가연이한테 받아가지고.
See, I'm not the only one who says
그 안에서
Gahyun is
조금
cute.
귀엽게. 수아는 파워풀해요. 굉장히 메인 댄서라서 파워풀하지만 그 안에서의 약간 수아의 청순함이 있거든요. 바람이 날리는. 다미 파트는 다미를 만들진 않고요. 저는 다미의 배경을 만들어요. 다미는 본인이 하고 싶은 게 뚜렷하고 항상 잘
Interesting.
만들어 오기 때문에 다미가 어떤 제스처를
Oh, I
할까
love all of the
기대하면서 그 백을 만드는 거죠.
insight into like their
종이
certain
같은
movements.
경우에는 되게
'Cause I wouldn't have known
목소리가
that.
되게 옥구슬 같은 느낌? 되게 뭔가 실크 같은
It's her voice is like jade marble. I
할까
love that
기대하면서 그 백을
image.
만드는 거죠. 이제 동이 같은 경우에는 되게
That's a
목소리가 되게
wonderful way to
옥구슬
describe
같은
someone's
되게
voice.
뭔가 실크 같단 말이에요. 파워풀한 거에서는 완전 반대되게 파워풀하게 만드는 스타일입니다. 일단 그 마지막 코러스에서 리에가 강성찬이라는 친구랑 같이 정리해서 만든 마지막 코러스입니다. 이 구성은 아까도 말씀드렸듯이 비대칭이에요. 대칭인 것처럼 보이거든요. 진짜로. 근데 비대칭이에요. 잘 한번 보세요. 여러분.
It is asymmetrical.
다다다닥 소스가 또 나오잖아요. 여기서도 마지막 엔딩 V를 돌려요. 자자자작. 이것도 시간차. 그리고 전 하고 마지막 엔딩 두둑까지 봐주시면은
I agree.
아주
I like the
재밌지 않을까.
ending.
이거에서 아마 다 끄실 것 같은데 드득까지 있답니다. 그래서 그 마지막에 소스가 TV가 꺼지는 소리가 나더라고요. 짠 이렇게 나와요. 근데 그런 거 하나를 다 버리기가 싫은 거예요. 작곡가 친구들이랑 소통을 했을 때 제가 어떤 소스나 어떤 악기 소리를 살려주면 되게 감동을 받아 하더라고요. 이런 걸 놓치기 싫어가지고 마무리를 싹 지었습니다. 과감한 시도를 한번 해봤어요. 다 13명이서 안 맞으면 끝나는 거잖아요.
True,
입박자를
13.
이게 좋죠.
It's a lot of people
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2,
to sync up.
8, 1이 아니고 2, 맞췄습니다. 아니 왜 이렇게 기습 질문을 하세요 진짜? 한 단어로 표현할 수 있을까? 드림캐쳐란 운명이다. 제가 드림캐쳐 이전
I like
팀인
that.
링스가 될 뻔했거든요. 근데 이제 제가 회사를 나오게 되면서 안 하게 된 건데 저는 회사를 나오면서 다신 뒤도 돌아보지 않겠다라고 생각을 했는데 뭐 프로듀스 하면서 다시 회사로 잡혀왔고 그 후에 또 회사를 나갔는데 댄서 활동을 하면서 너가 연습생 레슨을 해봐라 하면서 또 잡혀와서 드림캐쳐까지 이제 맡게 된 건데 드림캐쳐가
So she keeps coming back. Like it's something that she keeps being pulled
성장
towards.
과정이 없었겠죠. 제가 이것이 어떻게 보면 너무너무 운명적이잖아요. 드림캐쳐와 저는 운명이지 않나 싶습니다. 네, 앞으로 아포칼립스 3번째 내용이 나오는 것도 많이 기대해 주셨으면 좋겠어요. 그러면은 지금까지 슈다였습니다. 안녕.
Bye. Thank you for your insight and your work.
고맙습니다.
I loved getting to see the inside. Like, I already knew that I was going to, but I love how she really went into lots of different facets of it, not just like talking about how certain images related to the story of the music, but she also went into some of the like background of like behind the scenes kind of stuff about how things were put together and like the other choreographers and how she worked with the members and that kind of thing, how the choreo evolved as it was put together. I always love getting some insight into kind of the process because I feel like it makes me nostalgic. Which I feel like came off, I feel like I talk too much about myself and my own experiences, but it does make me very nostalgic because that's very much a huge part of the creative process is you kind of have an idea on like a basic level and you can see it in your head, and then as soon as you have to translate it into actual performance it becomes a lot more janky. Like you have to deal with a lot more things, little issues that just kind of come up, little bumps in the process that you have to smooth out. So I love getting to see that. I really want to go back and look at the part where she was talking about how the different members have like different ways of moving, like different things that come out in the way that they move from their personalities or their preferences and stuff like that. Because I feel like that's a really interesting insight that I just won't have because I'm not far enough into watching them perform to really see those details. So I love getting that picked up. I think my big like light bulb moment of her talking was when she was talking about how when Dami starts her part, it's like breaking through like a cage, and I like don't know why that image didn't fit into my head. I kind of had her like breaking through the group, but the idea of like coming out of that cage and, you know, no longer being someone who's trapped, but being someone who can be kind of like a hunter, be someone who is more in power and control in that instance. So I really liked getting that insight because I don't know, that didn't click in my brain when I saw it, so I liked having it pointed out to me. I think my favorite move is still the vision one. I think that's still my favorite, the like making the picture. So I think that's my favorite move. Let me know what your favorite dance move is from it as well, because I would love to just hear how a change in perspective changes how they interpret different moves, and especially for people who are bigger fans of Dreamcatcher, have been with them for longer, can kind of pinpoint some of those movements like they were talking about with Yihyun's part, where that is a callback to like other choreo that she has, which I wouldn't have picked up on. So let me know what your favorite part of the choreo is, and you can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so as next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!